Troy, you want to kick it off with the whole Holland scenario?
Okay. So, yeah, just as a recap, wow, what's it been? 2 or 3 weeks now? Anyway,
Nearly 3 weeks, yeah.
Yeah, we had a great time in Holland. Very productive in the 3 days that we were together, and came up with some good innovative structures and models that we think will really they're game changers in terms of getting us all to work together, all the different groups. We've come up with a twist on the sociocracy model, which we'll talk about in a little bit, to work amidst an intergroup structure to work with different organizations, as well as a GBI, gift-based income model we'll talk about, and as well as the launch of the first World Summit Cafe. That's Marianne's traveling cafe and her caravan or camper, whatever you want to call it. So that was great. It was fun getting together with everybody that we've been working with virtually for months now. It was great to see everybody live and in person and have fun with. And so then, I moved on. I went to Italy. Where did I go? No, I went to Amsterdam for another 5 days, and then now I'm in Italy. I guess Tony went back to the UK, and Lisa's in Mexico now. Stephanie's in UK now. Marianne's back in the still mobile, but I guess you're back in the Holland, and Lee's in UK. But anyway, since we all know each other here, but I think it would be good, especially if it's being recorded for later visits, to maybe go around and give a little introduction of each other. So I guess I'll start. My name is Troy Wiley, digital nomad. So don't really have a home. I'm just traveling the world for the last 2 years, and a writer. I've recently written a book called The Next Copernican Revolution, which is basically about what I advocate, the post-capitalist, post-monetary paradigm. So I've written that book last year, and then basically what the book alludes to is everything that we've been working on with the World Summit. I met Tony, I don't know, close to a year ago, and he's founded this very movement that is actually, I think, a manifestation of everything that I've been envisioning in my book. And so it's just incredible timing to have met him and then to join up to start the World Summit. And it's really come a long way, and we'll talk about some of these later culminations here. But anyway, so I will be going to Mexico next to help set up the second World Summit Cafe with Lise Simard, and she'll be talking a little more about that later. And anyway, that's about it for me. Who would like to go next?
I will try. I am Marianne. I am living in Holland, and I'm living in, how do you call that? In a mobile home, Tony, help us even.
Self-sustained.
Yeah, that's what I meant. I am from childhood an activist, because I always want to change the world, because the world wasn't as I liked it to be. And now I have got the opportunity with the World Summit to make this more, how do you call that? like reality. I'm a mom, and I am a very basic woman. So I like to less talk but do things. So I started the World Cafe network with my mobile home, because we are traveling from places to places, country to country, and we meet a lot of people. And when we meet all these people, they always talk about the nature, the way we live, the way the world is. So I think it's very good to promote World Summit at this way. So yeah, that's my story. So who wants to go next?
I could do it. My name is Liz Simard. I'm French Canadian from Quebec. I heard about the World Summit group last spring from Troy, and it was a part in my life that I feel that I want to meet people. They have the same feeling as me, because I was tired of the of all the things happen right now, and it was a good time for that. And last spring, Troy was here in Mexico, and well, I live in Mexico in the wintertime, and in Playa del Carmen, and we have an ideal of a place for people to gather together and talk about problems. Because what I felt before I heard about the World Summit, I was thinking to myself, well, I have some strange ideal, but I don't see people, they have the same ideal as me. So it must be some people in the world that have the same ideal as me, as create something new, something big. And I think with the World Summit Cafe, we could do that, like reach just local people and show them that they are not alone. We have the same ideals as them. And yeah, that's about it.
Right.
Stephanie?
Yep. Right. So I met Troy and Tony last December. So that's joined the World Summit. It was such a pleasure, and they still work with amazing people. I myself, I'm an activist for resource-based economy business project. So we started this RBE learning network because we feel like we need more. We need to connect those RBE supporters online and offline. So yeah, so I've been knowing RBE for a little bit more than 2 years, and yeah, I wish I can contribute more to the world. Right. Tony?
Right, me. I'm well, I'm a dad of 2 children. I've recently split with my partner, so I'm going to have a lot more time to work on the World Summit, and that's something we'll be talking about with GBI. So things has been a little bit tough for me, so don't want to go too much into details on it. We'll all work out in the end. When it comes to the World Summit, the World Summit has become my life. There are some very simple solutions to some what people consider big problems. For example, every group is very organized and they've got a structure, but working together, most groups seem to lack that. So we have kind of created an idea that we're going to be talking about in a minute. So yeah, that's me.
I think I'm the last one. Am I the last one?
Yes.
Okay, guys. Yeah, I'm Matt. I've been working as a professional website developer for, probably coming up for 20 years now. I guess about sort of 5 or 6 years ago, I started looking at ways of using my skills as a website developer to actually do some good in the world. And I started developing a platform to help connect like-minded people, I guess, at a local level. So help those of us who are on this sort of level to actually find each other locally. And that's kind of evolved into a social networking platform which has been adopted by several organizations, for example, the Ubuntu movement and a few others. Yeah, over the last few years, I've really just been talking to a whole load of different existing movements and individuals. You know, there's so many people out there who've got the same ideas, all the same ideas that you guys are talking about, really. And what I'm trying to do is use my skills on the internet to actually build platforms that actually help to bring both individuals and organizations together to work more effectively together, I guess. Really with a focus on local connection, getting people connected locally, offline, you know, sort of local projects and things. So I don't know, Troy, if you want me to talk a bit more later on about the actual platform or do that now. Or
Well, maybe we could do that now because you know, we've been talking about it. It fits in with everything that we want to talk shortly about regarding the GBI and sociocracy and everything, because we've been struggling for months trying to get a website built. And we're, of course, a volunteer organization. And as you know, there are challenges working with volunteers. Everybody is, hello, Lee.
Hi, Lee.
Okay, everybody is working full-time jobs to support themselves, and they have great intentions. They want to change the world, and they're involved with different organizations. But therein lies the problem, is that we just don't have time and or money, or the time that money buys us, to really change the world as fast as we would like and as fast as we need to. So what we've come up with is a GBI, gift-based income model, that we'll go into more explanation of shortly. But I'll just say that Matt Dow is one of the first beneficiaries of a GBI, and just to talk about the power of that, what that has done is, you know, Matt has I guess a full-time, he's an independent contractor, I guess, so he has his own business, but he works with companies, and you know, his main employer, you know, we were working 4 or 5 days a week, and with the GBI that the World Summit is providing Matt, that has allowed him to go to his employer and reduce his working days, work week, by 1 day a week. Okay, and so that's quite powerful. That's suddenly freed him up to have the time to work more intensely on the World Summit website and integrating our website with the CoEO platform. So anyway, we're excited about that. We think that's going to be a huge addition, a huge contribution towards getting us to integrate and work with all the different groups. So Matt, I don't know if you want to jump in there. Maybe.
Well, I guess what I neglected to say in my introduction is a little bit about myself. Actually, I sort of went straight into what I do, but yeah, I mean, unlike a lot of you guys, I'm not so much of a nomad. I'm very much, I've got 2 young children here. I'm married. I'm living here with my wife and kids, and very much sort of, I guess, in the sort of family life. So I'm not as flexible as probably some of you guys in regards to my time and traveling around. I have to work to pay the mortgage, those sort of things. So yeah, I mean, all the work I've been doing over the last 5 years on the platform that I've built so far has been pretty much all in my spare time, which is really limited to, like, maybe an hour or 2 in the evenings at most. Sometimes I would stay up late evenings working on it, but I've never really had the time to really commit to it, purely because I've got to support my family. I have to work to support my family. So it's been my dream to actually be able to put more time into what I'm passionate about, and I've not really been able to justify doing that, for financial reasons. So any way that's possible to make that happen is such a big thing for me. It actually really allows me to do what I can to make a difference, and not be pressured by having to juggle too many things at the same time. So yeah, I mean, I'm now in a position where I've been working on a donation basis. My website now has 40,000 members. I do get a few donations from them, and that's kind of been keeping things ticking over, but it's really not allowed me to do and put the amount of time into it that I'd want to. So yeah, it makes a huge difference.
Great. Lee, did you want to finish a little introduction? I guess maybe you've said enough, or I don't know.
So I don't know how much you heard, but I would like to say apologies for the constant interruption whilst I was sorting that out. It was kind of ironic, well, not ironic, it was surreal. I've been contacted by someone through a New Earth website who says that she's in the UN, and she just made contact via email to me, and the next thing I know, my computer's completely thrown out. So I'm going to set paranoia aside. But I do come from a similar sort of position as Matt, insofar as I also have a 9-to-5 job in the financial industry, and so I realised only last year that I was part of the problem rather than part of the solution, and I've spent the time since then looking at solutions to work my way into aligning my passion, my livelihood, and becoming free, like all of us. And I was very interested by the gift-based economy, and understanding how that might actually work in practice, because in terms of what we've been looking at in Ubuntu, there's been lots of discussions about how we actually take a model which doesn't fit mainstream and help it apply. How do we use the existing tools to make it work? We're becoming really clear about where we go with that, but obviously it's something that we all wrestle with, is how do we function in today's environment whilst remaining true to ourselves. So that's why I was very interested in coming along to see what had to be said.
Great, welcome. Eric, did you want to say a little introduction? Eric, can you hear me?
Hi, Gerrit.
Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Can you do a quick introduction, please, of yourself?
Oh, yes. Okay, so I'm Gerrit from the Netherlands. And yeah, I see lots of friends here. Hi, Lisa, Stephanie, Marianne. Matt, I don't know yet, and Lee, I don't know also yet. So very nice to meet you. Yeah, what's to say? I'm a furniture maker, and I'm a very strong participant of World Summit Group, of course. So yeah, if you want to know anything, just ask. But I don't know. Is that enough for introduction?
Yeah, thanks again for inviting us into your lovely home there in Holland.
Yeah.
World Summit member. That was great. Thanks. Thank your wife as well.
Yeah, sure. It was all my pleasure.
Okay.
So.
So as we all know each other, shall we just dive into the deep end?
Yep.
Are you all?
Yeah, let's go.
Yeah. Okay. Right. I might be losing my concentration once in a while. That's just because, as Troy has told me on a few occasions, that I need to slow down. So if I go off track, I'm sure that one of you guys will pull me back. So please do so. Hang on a minute. I just see that James's Jim is online. Just Troy.
Yeah.
While I start talking, would you mind giving Jim a shout?
Yeah. Okay. Go ahead.
Right. A couple of weeks ago, Troy decided to come over to the UK and spend a couple of days with me, and this coincided with the Global Solutions Day, and we had a lovely invitation from Lee Welsh to go and come visit, and which we really enjoyed. We were talking about a lot of things. We've learned a lot of each other, and it made me think about a few things. As we all know, we all have most groups these days that they have a very good structure within. They're very organized. They're working towards what they believe in a very good way. But when it comes to the unification of groups, there seems to be a lack of structure and organization. And this is due because most people are dedicated to their groups. Which is very understandable because we're all doing the same thing, but we all want to unify as well at the same time. Now, to create a working system, we need to create time. So after we came from the Ubuntu meeting, circle you guys call it, I believe, yeah? Well, when we came from there, Troy and I were talking in the car, and we were talking about that groups at Wheels of Co-Creation, and everybody's kind of keeps reinventing the same wheel all the time. And, you know, as I said, well, don't you think it's time that we put them under a cart and start using them? You know, but let's start first pulling them in the one direction that we need, and that's the unification of all the other groups. So we started talking a bit more, and we came with the idea of a pizza, because we didn't want to invent a wheel. We thought we'll invent a pizza instead. And this pizza is in 8 slices, and it involves GBI. Now, I need to explain a little bit about GBI. GBI, as most of you people know what a UBI is that right? Universal Basic Income. Universal Basic Income is going to be introduced very shortly to everybody because of automation. By the year 2030, you will see that most of the population within the Western world will be benefiting from universal basic income. However, we then created or came up with the idea of creating a gift-based income for people that can actually work towards creating a World Summit event that will then allow for groups to come together and work towards a collective solution and transition. Is everybody with me so far? Any questions? No? Lee, are you still there? Because I can only see a picture.
Yes, I am still here, but I've just been told that I've got to go and play taxi service, so I apologise. I am listening, but I'm now listening on the move, so perhaps it's fortuitous. I'm actually listening via the phone. It was meant to be, so I am listening. Bear
Okay,
with.
okay, cool. Well, if there's anything you want to ask, you know, just ask away.
Will do.
So, GBI, what is a GBI? GBI is, well, let me first say something else. A couple of years ago, I was talking to a friend of mine, and I said to him, if I could sell anything that would make me a millionaire instantly, I would sell time, because nobody's got time. If, as groups, you have, everybody has honorable intentions, but to rely on volunteers is not always reliable. You have to work around each other. There is no free time. So what is important to create a summit that can send us into a transition within no time is to create time via a GBI. So if people are able to, is this at this point where I start showing the, where I start sharing my screen?
Yeah, because, yeah, go ahead and share your screen. We've created some slides that talk about the sociocracy, organizational structure, as well as the GBI model. And you'll see how they kind of work hand in hand.
Right, can you all see this?
Yeah.
Okie dokie. Right, Sociocracy, as we call it. Troy, you're better at explaining that one than I am.
Well,
and I'll explain the pizza.
Actually, thanks to Lee and his Ubuntu circle in the UK that Tony and I visited, he made mention that they use the sociocracy model as well. And it rung a bell with me because several years ago I had heard about it, but I hadn't really looked that much into it. But interestingly enough, right at that same time, or a day or two before that, Tony was starting to come up with this idea of this pizza slice organization. And then after we kind of worked through some of the details of what that would look like, and then we attended the Ubuntu meeting, and Lee mentioned sociocracy. I looked it up, and it turns out it's exactly what Tony was envisioning. And so we've it's perfect. It's exactly what we need because it's non-hierarchical, it's distributed, it's based on, it's a whole new method of self-governance that was developed in Holland, strangely enough, since we were just there. And it's based on egalitarian principles, consensus, decision making, and so we'll go into it a little bit more. But it's a proven model that's been around for a while now, and I think it holds some great promise for humanity working together and self-governing ourselves successfully, because we know that our governments around the world right now are failed and they no longer work. So we were trying to figure out what exactly is this, how are we going to organize ourselves as a world summit? And then we stumbled upon this, and then it kind of naturally fit right in with Tony's pizza pie analogy. So we've kind of got a hybrid of that, and I'll let Tony go on and explain the rest from there.
Okie dokie. This is our pizza. Communication and translation, alternative funding, marketing and outreach, World Summit Cafe Network, public relations, World Summit event, technology and governance, and transition. Right. This is a pizza that is not to create a new world. This is a pizza to create the World Summit. This is the pizza is what we need to create the unity between groups and individuals to come down to the World Summit and start transitioning in their own ways, which they choose, as long when it's under the umbrella of sustainability of the Earth's, of the planet as we know it. So if we, for example, have if we have a group like the World Summit group, for example, and we stick a person in each of these segments, and they could produce 4 hours a day or even 2 hours a day of active work without relying on volunteers, we will have a continuous working system. But this can't be just filled by just the World Summit. This needs to be filled by a representative of each group, in each segment. What we need for groups to have 8 people to fill one of each of these slices. What you end up with is with a pizza slice that kind of looks like this. Now, all these groups are not necessarily on board as it is. This is just an example of the graph. So we have here seven groups in one slice, all working towards establishing the World Summit event, where we can then listen to the groups with the problems and the solutions that are being brought forward, and we can act on them. By that time, we will be so great, so huge as a community, as humanity, that we will be just sailing past the government in no time, that they won't even know what is happening, but by the time it's too late. We based this pizza on having 8 representatives of each group and filling a slice each. If, for example, I need to get my calculations here now. Hang on, where are they? Because we're talking about time. Right. 7 groups, each group's offers 9 delegates. I come to the 9th one in a minute. Yeah, 1 delegate for each of the 8 slices and 1 delegate for the Vision Council, which is 63 people. 63 people times 4 hours a day, if we are really serious about changing the world. That will equate to 252 hours work per day, and 5 days a week. That will equate to 1,260 hours of productive work, and monthly 5,040 hours of productive work. We can do this by giving people the time and giving them a GBI. Now, at the moment, we only have the one sponsor, and that is from the Art of Living. Obviously, one sponsor will not be able to fund this whole system. We need to have more sponsors. And that brings me back to how the system would work. Am I missing anything out here, guys?
Yeah, go to the second slide there. Let's just see if there's
This one.
the one showing the details of each functional slice.
This one.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we came out, let me just say something here. We don't need to go into great detail here, but we've thought pretty thoroughly in Holland, sitting around the table as a group, and came up with these 8 functional areas. And, you can see that, like in marketing and outreach, that's a global focused function. Whereas the World Summit cafes, that's a local community building function. We'll have, we're bound to stir up some interest with the press, and in fact, we will be requesting, representation from the press and journalists. So we have a slice for that. We have alternative funding. We'll talk more about the GBI shortly, and the sponsors, both individual and business. And communication and translation, obviously that's, translating these, the mission and the vision of the World Summit into as many languages as possible. Technology and governance, that's the slice where we actually are we're being the change in how we are using this alternative governance system to bring us towards the World Summit event, which is the slice right next to it. So we believe that by actually creating this governance structure and living by it, as well as all the values that we believe in that are basic to the principles of our organization, such as nonviolent communication, that if we can actually do all this stuff in our governance, our self-governance, then by the time we get to the World Summit, we may actually not need the World Summit, and we will have created a whole new form of self-governance that works, that we will. Tony, if you can go back to the transition slide there.
Yeah, it started off. Press the wrong button. Yeah, got it.
So anyway, this, as Tony said, the whole organizational structure of this World Summit organization now is leading up to the World Summit event itself. But if we can pull that off, if we can put that together and unify all these different organizations from around the world, then we'll have created the new paradigm. Therefore, that comes to the green slice there, the transition. Then we can start talking about this new paradigm. Is that Jim there? Oh, hello, Jim. Thanks for joining us. So anyway, all these, if we can do a good job at all of these other slices, then we're going to create the transition. This will become the transition to the new paradigm that we all want to see, and will be the change that we want to see. And we're not talking 100 years from now or beyond our lifetime. We're not talking decades, but with some of the exponential mechanisms that we're going to be talking about, we believe this could be like within years, maybe even next year, who knows? And so then we're going to have a whole functional area with people talking about, okay, what does the transition actually look like? What do we need to do to enact a peaceful handover where we basically, the current powers that be, our governmental leaders and the economic elite, are just ignored. We flipped the whole critical mass towards the World Summit, and they're not going to know what hit them. And so this whole thing could happen non-violently, peacefully in a very short period of time. So, Tony, would you like to continue?
Yes. Hi, Jim. You've just came into well, not in the middle of it. Just a quick recap. We've been to Holland and we've had 3 days we had together, and we found that by working together we are able to create an awful lot of work. And out of all that work came this pizza slice, which we're now discussing at the moment, which is working towards the event of the actual World Summit event. The idea is to ask for groups to have 8 people of their groups to work together with other groups to create this World Summit event. We can do this by having volunteers, or we can do this a different way by using a GBI. A GBI would free up time for people, and basically this is what people are needing the most for working within an activist organization. They need time. So how can we create time? For people that have the time, I used to have the time, so I wouldn't need a GBI. Unfortunately, my circumstances have changed. So for me to work on the World Summit full time, I could benefit from a GBI instead of finding a job and be again on keeping my nose just above water and not being able to do as much work as I could do with a GBI. And this is also for others. For example, Matt Dowell from COEO, he's benefiting from a GBI. That means that frees up some time in his working week, which he can then dedicate on creating what he's creating. For people to because on the end of the day we want to change the world, and it's gonna take some work. With having 8 people of each group joining in each of these sections to work together on creating the World Summit event, we've made some calculations. With 7 people or with 7 groups, we could create in a month, based on 4 hours a day, 4 hours a day, just over 5,000 hours of work. And that's only with 7 groups. Make it 100 and you produce over 100,000 hours of active and effective work. With that, you can also create a World Summit event within 12 months.
Tony, excuse me, can you go back to the first slide? And I'm actually circling around here, which is appropriate, because it's also by way of introducing Jim Gray Wolf Petruzzi, who is very active in the Standing Rock movement and Water is Life, and works very closely with some of the indigenous communities. And notice that the sociocracy structure of self-governance is circular in nature, and that totally fits in with some of the tribal ways that Native Americans and other indigenous people around the world have organized their societies and self-governed for many millennia. And so that's sort of the circular nature of what we propose. It's non-hierarchical with sociocracy. And Tony, if you can take Jim to the slide showing the different organizations. And Jim, we've sort of combined sociocracy with the pizza slice analogy. So we envision having the different groups, whether it's Black Lives Matter, Ubuntu, Venus Project, Standing Rock, the Zeitgeist Movement, United Earth, etc. And as Tony was just alluding to, this could extrapolate to many, many organizations, and therein becomes the exponential power of what we're talking about. So, Tony, did you want to?
Yeah, well, what we're talking about is every group has their own vision. Every group is working on their own thing, but all the groups want to unite. We all want to be one big family and take this on all together. If we want to do that, then we need to work together, and we need to work together in a way that is structured and organized. Groups individually are very organized and structured, but when it comes to the organization of the groups together, there seems to be a lot of lack of structure and organization. With having representatives of all these groups coming in, working just towards a World Summit event, creating thousands of hours of real work, with just 10 groups, we could create a World Summit event within 12 months, because we would have created in a year over 80,000 hours of work. But we're not aiming for 10 groups. We're aiming for hundreds. But we don't even have to fill that slice with hundreds of people, because then it becomes too much of a noise. But this is just to create the World Summit event, to create the representatives that will be speaking, that will be representing their groups, their individuality, etc. And we can get there so incredibly quick if we use this system. But it means for a couple of months hard work for everyone. And if we can do this and we can free up time with people and get some sponsors in to provide a GBI, a gift-based income for the time being that people are spending their time away from their work, but they still have families to feed, and then being compensated that way. That way we're gonna, well, in my eyes, 10 groups would create so much work so fast that come May, we're going to have groups jumping in and out from everywhere onto the pizza slice. This is, in my eyes, a tipping point.
Tony, can you take us to that slide showing the sponsors? And well, yeah, let's stop here a little bit. Go back one, if you don't mind. Anyway, this is one of the operating principles of Sociocracy, is 2 representatives from each circle participate in the decision making at the inner circle. Okay, so it's kind of a unique thing that's a lot different than the representative government that we created with democracy 200 years ago. But anyway, go forth one, Tony. Okay, so this is getting into what we envision. So we're going to have sponsors, what we call sponsors, and that can be both businesses and individuals. And then we're going to have what we call transparent gift-based income, or GBIs. Transparent is important. That is also a principle of Sociocracy. Total transparency. And so how this is going to work, now, my company, Art of Living, is just one sponsor right now. And I've created, I sell my own products on Amazon, some reusable lunch bags and sandwich bags and so forth. I've created one particular design. I didn't create it. I pay royalties to a talented Israeli artist, Mark Eskenazi, and he's created this amazing design called World Map that's borderless. It just shows, it's done in like watercolors, and it's a multicolored earth with no borders whatsoever. And I think it's a perfect illustration for what we're trying to achieve with the World Summit. So all the profits, 100% of the profits from that particular design will go towards the World Summit. We've been selling for about 3 months now in the US. We just recently rolled out the products in Europe, and about another week they'll be rolled out in Canada. And so this is just one example of what one company could do, as well as if we have some individuals that want to contribute. And here's how our whole structure is different in terms of handling donations. We are trying to transcend governments and banks and economic systems altogether. And that's where the term gift comes into play here. If we can, as individuals or companies, make what we call GBCs, which are gift-based contributions, then they're non-taxable up to a certain amount. They're non-traceable, because how we plan on doing this is through, you're probably aware that you can buy these gift cards that are just like Visa and MasterCard credit cards. or debit cards. So we at the World Summit will not have a bank account. We are not going to register with any government as a nonprofit because we don't want to be governed, managed, and hierarchical. We want to have a self-governing structure. So if we find a sponsor, an individual or a government that wishes to get behind what we're creating, then they will make a GBC contribution directly to the receivers. In this case, the delegates working on the World Summit. It'll go directly to them through a gift card. Okay, that's not really, it's a gift. So there's no, and we are totally transparent about it. If anybody wants to know how we're doing it, this is how we're doing it. So it's not like laundering money or fraud or anything of the sort. It's purely a gift. And that's what we're trying to move towards, is a gift-based society. And we think that this could actually be what gets us there. So let's talk about, what am I missing now, Tony? Anything? Okay, so again, my company is just one of many. And here's a point that I want to get to. It was, we had somebody express a concern about this model, and their concern was, well, it could be very difficult. It could be a hard sell trying to get, excuse me, individuals and companies, as conscious as they may be, it may be a hard sell getting them to buy into this model and contribute. To which I would like to respond and say, so many NGOs and charities out there, as well as protest movements or groups, are dealing with the aftermath of a fucked up system. And they're dealing, it's sort of like, what's the proverbial closing the gate after the horse is bolted from the barn. And so we're dealing with the symptoms, the net effects of a messed up system. And, I partner with these artists, and we give to various causes in my company. And this German artist, she wanted to donate some of her royalties towards the cleanup after all of the hurricanes. And so we did. I matched her, and we contributed to the American Red Cross for the hurricane efforts. And that's wonderful. We've got to do that. There's all kinds of organizations out there that are doing what I call holding actions, whether it's Standing Rock or Black Lives Matter or whatever. We need to stop the harm that's being done now. And we need forces on the ground that are doing that and holding the corporations accountable and stopping the damage now. But we need to also shift our focus and create this new structure, this new paradigm that's got to get us out of this monetary-based, scarcity-based system that's destroying the planet. And we need to, if we can address that and deal with that, then all these other things will take care of themselves. So we see this as a realistic way to refocus our efforts towards creating the new system. And it's a way of doing it now, not some way, unbelievably far out time in the future. This is something that, as my small company, I've got a small little company that's making about $1 million, and my company is able to provide some GBIs right now, right here. It's freeing people up to work towards creating the World Summit. Now imagine if, we had somebody like Elon Musk or, who knows? All these big corporations that could shift just a fraction of their money towards something like this, or the wealthy individuals that, you know, are looking for good causes to contribute to. But again, so many of those causes are dealing with the symptoms rather than the cause itself.
Yeah.
So, Tony, what am I leaving out there? Anything?
No, you kind of covered everything. Basically, if we all want to change the world as it is today, we are on a time restriction, really. We can't keep on talking about it. We really need to take some active and drastic action by creating the World Summit itself. By using the system, we could create it in no time, in absolute no time, and that will be the biggest event that would ever happen. We're going to have a mini summit over in Mexico in January, and I'm just going to stop sharing for a second. Right, we're going to have a mini summit over in January in Mexico, and there is a few people here that we want to invite to come over there. Jim, we would like you to be in Mexico for the mini summit. Lee, we would like you to be there as well, I believe. And Matt, you as well. So far, we can, with a GBC, we can afford at this moment in time to pay for all the accommodation and for a food and drink allowance. That will be non-alcoholic then. So any alcohol you got to buy yourself, guys.
That's well, thank you very much. That's a very generous offer, and that's probably all I will say about that at this moment. Apart from no alcohol, that's a very good thing.
And we hope to be able to provide partial compensation for airfares, and we want to use this as an example to show how the the GBI system is working now. And let's bring the leaders of the key people of these various groups together in January in Mexico. And we're going to sell them, I hate to use the term sell, but we're going to show them that this system is working right now, not theoretically, not in the future, but now. And we think that when we start working together, get them on board, and we start working together, it's going to be unstoppable.
Well, what we've created in those 3 days in Holland was absolutely amazing. Imagine what we can create in Mexico with some real thought leaders and people who possess a lot of wisdom. What we could do with that. Like I said before, guys, I do apologize. I'm a bit struggling here. Some things are a bit raw in my life at the moment. It is, if we can create the time, we can create the World Summit, and the World Summit is only a label. It's not that we want to take all the credit, don't get me wrong on that. But I think if we can create a World Summit event, because we need a World Summit event, regardless, call it a people gathering event, it's going to be an event that's going to involve the world. So if we can have people from groups and they can free up some time and we have a dedicated line of communication, we can, in no time, shift from this bit into the next paradigm, which everybody is talking about, and we can actually do it this way. So if people can find sponsors with this pizza slice, for example, there is a bit about alternative funding. If we have members working on that, to contact other groups and institutions, individuals to fund us to create this World Summit, The more we have working on there, the faster it goes. The same thing with the World Summit cafes. The more people we have working on that, the more people we can bring in locally instead of always online. It's a very good idea. Do you understand the concept of the World Summit Cafe, Jim? Okie dokie. So everything will tie in together, and guys, the way I see it, and I'm very excited about this, is with that time and effort that we can get from people, because not everybody needs a GBI. Some people have the time. The people that don't have the time and we need their expertise, we can see if we can get a GBI, and with more sponsors, the more GBIs we can issue, the more time we can create, and time is what we need. And with that time, I've done a quick calculation somewhere, and I think if it's 10 groups, could produce in 12 months 86,000 hours of time of productive work. If we cannot change the world in 86,000 hours, then we are doing something seriously wrong here.
Okay, could I possibly chip in just with a few questions, or
yes.
Is there a Q&A after?
Sorry, I think before you ask your question, Lee, I think Gerrit wanted to ask the question. Is that right?
Now I already did some on the chat, as everybody could see, I think. So that trading is also a way to encourage, or I see it more happening here, that people are trading, like services. Also, companies are like small companies, like self-employments. They just trade services for each other, So that's also a way you can, work together.
Well, yeah, but it's about trying to get the funding for people to work only on creating the World Summit event.
Well, I think people are gonna do that anyway, and that's that's barter, and that's not exactly what we're talking about, but it's perfectly fine. And yeah, if people can trade services or goods amongst their neighbors, or that's absolutely. But what we're specifically trying to do is put a nail in the heart of capitalism, and use the system to destroy itself, basically.
Of course.
And by buying time so that we can free up people to work on the World Summit. So yeah, why don't we, Tony, I think we've covered everything. Maybe we open it up to some questions, and then we're going to come back around to Lise Samard, who's in Mexico, and she's opening the second World Summit Cafe, and she's going to tell us a little bit about that, and that'll also further show how this is going to work. But yeah, let's go ahead and open it up to some questions.
Yes, Lee, you had a question.
There's a lot of things that sound extremely familiar about what it is you're attempting to do. I'm not too sure I entirely agree that what you're doing is particularly unique in terms of trying to bring cooperation across different units, across different groups of people. I would also be very interested to find out about any legal opposition about the concept, and how wide your scope is. Presumably it's worldwide. What about the legal concepts and how they might be at odds with the gift-based economy that you're talking about? I apologize for any background noise.
No, that's fine. I can answer that for you. Are we talking about the current law system?
We're talking about legal requirements, the legislations and laws that are in place.
Are we talking about? Yeah, no, I know what you're saying. I assume that you are talking about the current legislation and law that's in place.
Yes, that's right. Either within the UK or whichever country it is that
Okay,
you're operating in?
I can clarify that. The World Summit is not registered as a non-governmental organization. We're not registered with anybody. The whole idea of the World Summit is to bypass the complete government law system. We work on sociocracy, we work on nonviolent communication, and we work on our morals. We do not believe the system that is in place now would work in our favor. It doesn't work in anybody's favor with that concern. So we're going to sail straight past that one. We will not. We don't believe in trademarks. Because we will not have that in the new paradigm. So why use it now?
And if I could add to that, I think at some point we've got to start saying no. Okay, that means to all the people that are trying to enforce bullshit laws on us or ways of being that are totally against our better nature and the environment. And if we're an organization that's trying to transcend the government and our economic system, then that means we need to start doing it now. And if we've set up the whole structure so that it's gifts from one individual to another. There is no registered entity. We're a leaderless organization. So Tony gets taken out, I get taken out, whatever. It's, first of all, we are not the leaders. We're a decentralized organization that anybody else can pick up and run with, okay? So we've got to, at some point, and if somebody from the government comes to us and says what we're doing is wrong, then how can you say it's wrong for this person to gift some money to this person? How can you say it's wrong to have an open house in your home and call it a cafe where you serve free coffee, free tea? It's not a registered business. Everything is given away for free. If people want to have a potluck dinner and bring dishes, how can the government say you can't do that? That's bullshit. So I'm sorry, if they try to put a stop to that, then we've got to use some civil disobedience. And there's no better time to do it. If they come down on us for being human, sharing.
Well, it wouldn't come to civil disobedience. I think the way we're doing it, by the time any kind of law or government finds out what we're doing, because in their eyes we're just another group. At one stage, it won't be like that anymore. We're going to sail straight past them, and we'll be walking into their office and say, "Right, this is it. Hand over the keys. You've been naughty. You couldn't run the country. It's finished. It's time to transcend into the new paradigm. It's enough. I mean, we can watch all the movies in the world we like, and dream about a new world. But you know what? We need to take that responsibility ourselves. We don't have to, as long when we are non-violent, we are not breaking any laws. When it comes to gifting money or services, we're not breaking any laws. But even if we were breaking any laws, in most of people's eyes, we're doing something for the greater good and not for the few. We're doing it for everyone. I mean, like yourself, like Malika. Malika, by the way, guys, is somebody that is also from Ubuntu. She helped with some gardens in a neighborhood where they grow some of their own veg, and shared it out with the people around, and what they had left over that they sold to the local shop, which is a very good idea. And again, it's not illegal. You're taking just a bit away from the major shops like your Walmarts and your Tesco's and God knows what. So our plan is sound. It is solid. it's workable. With funding from other entities or individuals, seriously, we could realize an event where all the groups and all the professionals can come together and say, like, look, guys, you know, this is it. You know, this is where we're going to start changing the world as it is. You know, we've had the time now. We've had the time to discuss this. We've had the time to do this, and it can happen if we use a structure like GBI and really use those hours effectively. Because like now, this meeting, I have to organize, or we had to organize a week, maybe 2 weeks beforehand, because we're all volunteers. If we were all on a GBI, for example, then this will be our slot that we will be discussing things and we will get things done. You know, and then tomorrow we would meet again and we would work again on things and say, like, well, what have you achieved so far? Have you contacted so and so? Because we have the time. So relying on volunteers, as honorable as they may be, they are not always reliable. And everybody knows that I've asked for so much help, and people will want to, everybody wants to change the world, you know, but, you know, when you ask for help, not everybody wants to. I don't have time. I wish I had the time to help you, you know. So why not get a sponsorship? You know, why not get some of the donations that groups get? You know, split it in half, give some to GBIs and give some to helping the group themselves for immediate projects. On the end of the day, it is that we need to unify to help all the projects in one go, and we can do that then in no time.
And I want to add one thought that I think may help us, because I think we're all struggling with the whole concept of the GBI. I mean, how can it work? I can't get my head around it. It's like we're so locked into this monetary framework, but and you know, we're trying to solve the world's problems with money. But we can never solve the world's problems with money because there just isn't enough money. When we take money out of the picture, then suddenly it opens up all kinds of possibilities. And I was just in Amsterdam recently, and I went to the Van Gogh Museum, and learning about Vincent van Gogh at a very young age. His younger brother, Theo, was basically giving Vincent a monthly allowance. And what that did, because he totally supported and believed in his talent and his artwork and everything, so that allowed Vincent van Gogh to focus totally 100% on his artwork. And even though he kind of went batshit crazy, he was no doubt a brilliant genius, an artistic genius. So that time, money became a non-issue for him. The time that he had allowed him to create the beautiful works of art. And you know, I'm thinking also of I've got a brother that's 20 years older than me. He's 71 years old and lives in the U.S. and Maryland, and barely the proverbial, he doesn't have a pot to piss in. He doesn't have, he just barely makes a little Social Security, and he's just eking by every month. And, you know, it just dawned on me, you know, I'm not wealthy, but I could afford to do that for my brother. I could give him what's called a GBI of $100 or $200 a month. What difference would that make to his life? But nobody ever thinks of that. If I have some money, why couldn't I just directly gift it to somebody who needs it on a regular basis, and think of what that could free them up to really accomplish? Not to mention just the restoring of humanity in our relationships.
Well, that's exactly right. You're storing faith in humanity, and this is with the GBI for the World Summit as well, because people can actually finally say, like, look, Hey, look at this. I can concentrate on what I believe in. You know, I don't have to go to work today because I can actually work on what I believe in, and that makes so much difference.
Sorry, that was a long answer. Any other questions, anybody?
I don't want to commandeer the Q&A section, but thank you for the answer. I've got a few more questions, but I do want to leave the space open for other people's input.
No, please ask.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so obviously with the Ubuntu Liberation Movement, money is definitely something that we don't believe in. We recognise that it's a religion, the world leading religion. We also recognise that government is a worldwide religion as well. It's a belief system that the law and people have the right to enforce authority, when in actual fact they've never had that right. They've just said that they do. So I understand entirely what you're saying. However, the tools that you're putting in place, you're just putting in place now, whereas those authorities, so-called authorities, have had those tools in place for thousands of years. And so I don't think there'll be a pushover by just saying, oh, well, we've got this new tool. So that would be, for me, it's a question of due diligence. You know, I'm just coming to this tool that you're talking about for resource-based economy. I recognize the essence of what you're saying, but as to how resilient it is against the so-called authorities, I would definitely want to understand that and do the research around that. But aside from that, also for Ubuntu, we're not so much, we do have volunteers at the moment because of the early stages that we're also at. And I would also emphasize that we are at early stages. So you had mentioned, was it 8 people coming to represent on the World Summit?
No. That was, are you talking about the pizza?
Yes.
No, that was an example. That is per slice.
Right.
That is per slice. That is from 8 people from each group. That will be 1 per slice.
Mm-hmm. Right, I see.
So,
okay.
and the reason that we say 8 people, because some people will maybe just want to work in the one area, but if we can spread it out so that everybody has an equal chance, yeah, and this is where sociocracy is very important, that we use that within, and that we also have all the bases covered with all the representatives of the groups. Now, it might sound a lot, but if you think about it, with 10 to 20 groups in 3 months, we could create so much work, which is unbelievable, which is, it's really worth the effort. It is not a long-term thing. This is something, if we put our minds to it and our heads to it and we start off, it's going to be a little bit hard going for the first couple of groups that are joining in this scheme. But as soon when it's rolling, in no time, as soon when you hit 10 groups, you're near enough hit the tipping point already, because then it will go very, very fast. I reckon if when January's meeting has happened, the summit, I'm very positive about the response that we're going to get. I reckon between June, July, the world is going to know about this. Everybody's going to know about this.
And what is it exactly that you will be doing that the world is going to be knowing about?
Because with the hours that we can create, we can contact a lot more people. Because don't forget, if you have 10 people working well, it's 80 people. Sorry, 10 groups is what is that? 80 people creates. Hang on a minute. I'm 10 groups. 7,000 hours of productive work a week.
Sure. Now, when it comes to the people that are funding the gift-based economy, what is it that is going to attract them to wish to do that?
Well, let me address that. So we think, number one, that what we've created here is an exponentially growing system that's going to snowball. Okay, that in itself is a selling point because it's going to accelerate the rate of change that we're able to accomplish. Okay.
Mhm.
We know it's not going to, our solutions are not going to come from our governments. They're not going to come from our corporations. Okay. People around the world now are talking about the need for a UBI. And there's two ways currently that that's going to come from. It's either going to be our governments or you even have venture capitalist firms like Y Combinator in the Silicon Valley that they're creating their own, they're taking their own capital from venture capitalists and creating funds and running tests on the UBI in California right now. So it's some hybrid. They're going to tax corporations or tax robots. But either way, it's going to come from typical industry or typical government. What we're talking about is a whole new UBI altogether that's going to come from the people. We can call it a people's UBI. And so why not use all the available funds out there? So many people, we're struggling with the same model. You know, everybody's website has a donate here button, okay? Everybody is competing. All these nonprofits are competing for the same money from the same well-meaning people. So what if we were to eliminate, and that's with our website, we're not going to have a donate here button at all. It's a whole different model for donating to good causes, and we think there's no cause better than this. So we think that's going to attract people, that this is actually addressing the root cause itself, which is capitalism and our monetary system. And unless and until we address that, we're going to keep getting all this other shit. And the pickle jar that we're going to need for donations is going to be so freaking huge because it's just going to get worse with the climate disasters and, you know, economic collapse and everything else. So,
well, if you put it this way, if you put all the donations together from all the groups, yeah, you're talking about thousands, if not millions. You know, and it's all being put to things which is again very honourable, but it's not tackling the root problem. Yeah, if some of that money could be diverted to create a World Summit event that creates a transitional, let's call it government. I can't think of another name at the moment for it, of all the representatives of all the groups, and then transcend into the new paradigm. You know, so the money is there.
I understand very much that time is an important aspect, a very important aspect, as you've pointed out. But I really feel that there's very much two things that is our true currency, you know, in a very natural way, and that is our time and our attention. So I guess what I'm trying to get to is where will the attention be with all of this time that people will have? And, you know, to actually say, well, you know, to sort out the problems that we have, I don't think is going to be something that investors wishing to actually contribute would actually buy into unless there was some kind of solid plan and strategy with that time.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're saying. For example, I'm going to use your group as an example. You say, like, we like this idea, we want to do this. Then there's probably 8 people that you might be able to find, yeah, that can work within creating this World Summit event. Those 8 people will be of Ubuntu's choosing, to put it that way. The people who can put the time in, if they can do it voluntarily, great. So they would be working for the World Summit, yeah, on behalf of Ubuntu. When it comes to the actual World Summit event, then it'd be everything that has happened within this pizza is being fed back to Ubuntu, to the founders themselves, to the groups themselves to decide if they want to go with it or not. The individuality of the groups is not touched. The World Summit doesn't represent one thing or another. The World Summit represents exactly as it says, an event. But to create that event, we need the help of the groups, because it's going to be on the end of the day that the groups and the experts are the ones that are going to be changing the world for the better. I have no idea on how I'm going to change the world. I have no plans. I'll see what happens, and I might fit in one of the tribes that is floating around. I do not know what is going to happen. But what I do know is that if we can work together and be unjudgmental towards each other, put our differences apart, and create this huge event, then we have transisted already. The only thing what we have to do is just implement it, and it doesn't have to be complicated at all. So with the time achieved, if Jim, for example, say gives 8 people of his group, and all the information they get from the pizza goes back to Jim so that he knows what is going on, he can filter that back into his group, and so everybody knows what is going on. There might be people that say, well, hang on a minute, guys, you're doing something wrong. So all of a sudden we have the volunteers helping us as well. But we have at least a structure and an organization of people that are committed to a certain amount of time a day, that they can work with others. So they'll be working either online or, if possible, maybe in I don't know, locally, if they are locally, it could well be. It is all possible, but on the end of the day, if we can do this, but we need to consent to it, because we can't keep on going as we are now, each for their own. But we're not going to go anywhere in the next 10 years, and in 10 years' time, we're going to be facing huge problems. You know, we now really have the chance to collectively put our effort together, use the GBI, get some more sponsors on board, and explain what we're doing. And in no time, we're going to have a huge event that is going to change everything. And from there on, then everybody can transit in the way they want to live, as long as it's under the umbrella, as everybody agrees already, because that's what all the groups represent, is the sustainability of our planet, you know, and be respectful to each other. You know, it's just common sense and using your morals. So, and we can do this if we combine our efforts. And it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough. Nobody's said that it's going to be easy. It's going to be tough, and especially from now on, because we all have to think about it. What is going to happen next? Are we going to do a GoFundMe to create this this time for people to work on an actual event, that we can have some proper representatives there that can give us some real wisdom and change?
Can we switch gears? Lee, if you have any more questions, maybe you could hold it for a little bit, or if anyone else has
Sure.
questions, because I'd like to switch over and talk about, have Lee Samard talk about the World Summit Cafe model, which I think will hopefully answer some questions as well, because there too, it's like we're trying to be the change we want to see and moving us towards a gift economy. So, Lise, did you want to maybe share your screen and talk about what you're working on? Lise, you need to unmute. Okay.
Okay, I found it.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. Do you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah? Okay. First of all, I just want to a little bit answer Lee, a question of Lee. Um, you know, I think the first thing is that to build, you have to believe in something. And when you believe in something, you do something about it, you know? And every time in life of a person, you have things to do that cost you, and you have to make a choice. You have to say, okay, I believe in that, I'm gonna do that. Even if it's not like worth it for me 100%. When you believe in something, you have to put yourself in it. It's like a mission, you know? And I know it's hard for the group because everybody's fighting for their thing. But if the group, those group believe that being together is gonna give us something powerful to do it, like Tony says, if we're still going to everybody on each way, I mean, it's not gonna work. It's not gonna work. You have to you have to be brave. I think you have to have courage and say, okay, I'm gonna try that because now we have to do something. And it's just my thought a little bit.
No, no. Could I just briefly respond to that? May I just briefly respond to that? I absolutely agree with you. Belief is absolutely important, and love and care. And I already am extremely passionate about what it is that we're doing insofar as I believe the answers are extremely simple. I believe that cooperation and open-mindedness is extremely important. Whilst I'm asking some challenging questions perhaps and some probing questions, it's because I wish to understand the model that is being presented. I think it's very important to understand, to acquire the knowledge and then apply that knowledge effectively. So that's what I'm doing. I'm asking the questions to better understand. But also I'm very clear that in Ubuntu we have a very clear and simple strategy, and I'm conscious that if we have other people's strategies, everyone's attention is going to be on their own strategies, and you know, the more places our attention is, the more scattered we're going to be. And you know, Ubuntu is very much inclusive as well, and we're not in any way saying that anyone is wrong. So I just want to know what's being placed on the table, but you're absolutely right. I completely agree with you.
Fair enough.
Okay, thanks. By the way, the word Summit Cafe is the same thing as a small level. It's absolutely the same thing. It's to reach people at a small level. So I'm gonna, okay, just a second. Okay, what I want to say, and Troy and I work on that poster since yesterday. I think it's brand new. And okay, first of all, I don't know if they were here at the beginning, but I'm living in Playa del Carmen for the winter, all those winter. And yeah, so I'm opening my house for the first stable, Word Summit Cafe, because Marianne opened the first one, mobile one. And we came with that flyer, that poster. So, well, yeah, you could read on it. So it's a free and open gathering space for World Changer. I think, Troy, you should speak in English to explain it because I'm not very...
So basically, the idea is to host cafes in people's homes or apartments, okay? And this will allow people to open up their homes, have open houses where they can invite people from the local community to come by and enjoy actually experience the gift economy, because they're going to be visitors will be provided with free coffee, tea, or even food, or we can even use a little bit of the contributionist model. People can bring by a plate of, a dish of food or whatever. And it's and to exchange ideas and talk about what is the World Summit and what we're about. And so then in this particular flyer, Lisa will go around to maybe yoga studios or other coffee shops and post this and invite people over to her place. Now, Lisa is receiving a GBI. Lisa, while I'm talking, can you mute your screen there? Because we're hearing the construction noise. Thank you. So, Lisa, and also, why don't you go ahead and pull up the pictures of your place. Now, Lisa is kind of a nomad herself. She travels around, but she spends the winters in Mexico, and she was going to go back this winter and rent, a tiny studio or one-bedroom apartment, okay? As sort of our flagship World Summit Cafe, she's receiving a GBI and every month, and that GBI is allowing her to get a 2-bedroom apartment that's more spacious, and it's got a rooftop terrace. It's done up really nicely in Mexican style, and it's perfect for hosting and having guests over. And so Lisa will walk you through these pictures here. And so this she would not have been able to do if it were not for the GBI that she receives, okay? So we're not only giving people time, but we're giving people resources to actually secure a venue where we can meet people on the local level and discuss these ideas. And the extra element about the World Summit Cafe is that it's trying to be a hybrid of some of the models and systems and platforms that are already out there, whether it's Airbnb or couch surfers or trusted house sitters, all these different sites. But ours is going to be free. It's a free, anybody that is a World Summit Cafe host can get free. They can travel to another World Summit Cafe and get free lodging. Absolutely no charge. And we also hope to tap into the growing community of digital nomads and the location-independent people, and they can, offer free Wi-Fi or co-working spaces. And so we think that, and this will be absolutely free to visitors in the community, and we're not selling anything except maybe ideas. And they can come by and actually experience the gift economy working. So I don't know, man. The $1 million question that everybody has is, how do we transition? How do we get from here to there? And we think that by actually doing it and start living by the gift economy, that is the transition. So anyway, we're excited. We've got some a new cafe coming in Missouri in the U.S. And Jim, I think your place in Colorado would be probably an awesome cafe location. And somebody said, well, there's people already doing this. They're already inviting people from their local community to talk about world-changing ideas. So, and they're not being paid to do it. To which I say that's absolutely fine. If you're able to do this without needing any funds, then that's cool. That's awesome. But think of the people that could benefit from a little bit extra income in the form of a GBI to take the pressures off of, so it doesn't just cover the costs of buying coffee and tea and maybe a little bit of food, or renting a little bit bigger place that's better for hosting visitors. but what if it could actually relieve some of your day-to-day living expenses and free you up, and so you don't have to worry, and then you could put that effort and that time and that freedom towards, you know, hosting a cafe and inviting people and talking about what the World Summit's trying to create. So anyway, I think that's good on that. Thanks, Lise, for showing that. Does anyone have any questions for Lise?
This is from the Facebook page that's going to be on soon.
Which you've already had a bunch of people joining it, right?
Yes. I have nothing on it yet, but it's brand new.
So she's going to be, actually hosting open house pretty soon, and we're trying to organize a presentation when I'm there in a couple of weeks, and we've already got a pretty solid network. We both know a lot of people down there. Playa del Carmen is, of course, it's a tourist hotspot but it's also an expat community and a conscious community. They get very forward-thinking people from all over the world, and we think that's going to be a great location to have a World Summit Cafe and spread the ideas. So I'm talking too much. Anyone else have any questions? Eric?
I think it looks very great, and it looks very promising, and I like the colors, and I think it just looks great. My compliments. It's very nice work you put in there, and I think it's being a good concept, and if it's more people doing it, like Marianne, for example, and other people in other places, this is the place where it starts, and you were giving a real good example and being the change. So I think this is it's very nice. I'm impressed. So yeah, just for my personal view, but I really like it. So more cafes instead of hard rock. I mean, hard rock cafes are nice, but
instead of more Starbucks.
Now I know that
Exactamente.
talking about World Summit Cafes, and this is going to tie in with Ubuntu as well, and with Matt, because Matt, you're creating a kind of a map, aren't you, where everybody is. This will make everything easier as well, especially when we work together. We can put blogs on and saying there is like Ubuntu, they have circles where people meet, which is a very nice experience. I recommend it to everyone. This way we are cross-pollinating our ideas that way, and we use each other's platforms and spread the word that way. That's a way of working together. So, I mean, our World Summit Cafes, Ubuntu circles, Jim, you do things too, don't you? I mean, you get gatherings together. Pardon?
Yeah. And I'm just listening and absorbing it all today. And I'm still letting it form in my mind. Yes, for me, the circle is critical. Everything I've done for years and years is around circle. Our nonprofit that we have is totally around circle as well. So, yeah, I'll focus on that part of it, the connection part, the unity part, because I have been seeing a lot in the last couple of years. And I hear everybody. And I see all the groups out there, and I scratch my head and I go, okay, we're never going to get anything done if we're all running around thinking we have the only answer. And I don't think we think that. I know we don't think that, because from the beginning we've said that. But it is part of the answer. To me, the real trick is bringing people together. I love the cafes. I wish I had a little more room here. But we're looking to shift to a different spot around here anyway, so maybe that'll work. Mexico, yeah, it's definitely time to come together. I personally have thought all along that the event is really important because it will focus attention on what we're doing. And I heard Lee talking about, what exactly are you doing? Why is it different? And those are totally valid questions. I think we have to ask more of them. But if we can turn a light on this, it will help a lot. I think one place we do need to chat a little more, and I did write it, is attacks will be made. So what? We don't stop. But we're deluding ourselves if we think they won't be, because I've been watching what goes on when people try for change now for the last couple of years. And not only the direct attacks by governments and their proxies, but the more insidious ones, the age-old trick of turning people against people and groups against groups. I think we need to be prepared for it. Some of the actions going on and movements going on right now, I freely see that we were not prepared for it. And it has caused a lot of dissent that we don't need. So I think just being prepared for things and staying in our power will allow us to get through all that. Because, the old models, the old systems, the old paradigm, some of the leaders we currently have are not going to go gently into the night. That's for sure. And they're not necessarily too careful about how they attack or what they attack. So I think the more we can be totally different, that's great. It's funny because Sue and I were at a retreat last weekend in Nebraska talking about similar issues. And there's some groups I'm going to bring into what we're doing as we go along. And it was also that debate. Well, should we be a nonprofit or should we be, there's some other group names, and forgive me, I don't remember what they are. I don't have my notes. And that debate's still going on, because being to the side of everything doesn't mean that the current establishment does not see us. They will definitely see us, and they will take us on. When they do, one thing we can say is, that's great, we're doing something right. And we've been doing that all along in the movements now. So, yeah, I think we're totally gone in the right direction. I wish, and a lot of us say this, I wish I did have more time. And if we can generate some of this cash, then, maybe some of us can free up more time. Because we still have to live in the current model, even as we develop the new model. Now, I watch Troy. Troy's one of my heroes, because he's doing things in a totally different way. And I'm trying to understand and use that way. And other people like him, I'm not just pointing the finger at him. But yeah, let's just keep going. That's all I got to say. Talking stick back in the middle. Thanks for letting me just sit and observe.
It is a lot to take in. I can see the dangers too, what you say. But whatever we do, if we stay non-violent, eventually the soldiers, they're all poor guys, every soldier comes from a poor family. They're not going to turn their guns to their mums and dads or their brothers or sisters. They're not going to do that. If they know what it's for, that they wouldn't do it.
Right.
I'm wholly convinced.
But your point is well heard, Jim, about we're being naive if we don't expect any resistance. So we've got a couple of slices on our pizza where we could actually use some help in those regards, whether it's the public relations slice or the governance slice, where we actually formulate plans and responses. How are we going to handle this if this happens, if they do this, So, yeah, I think we're going to need some help in those areas.
Yes. Yes, definitely. And this is why it's so important. And this is why it all comes down to time. And it is bad that we're still in the monetary system at the moment. And if we can use the monetary system to battle our causes, then let's do so, but let's not play by their rules. Yes, Lee.
So I just wanted to add some further things, because I know I've been asking a lot of questions. I've been quite challenging, and what I don't want to do is say, guys, you know, what you're doing is wrong, because quite the opposite. I feel quite the opposite, that any efforts to unite people and bring them together is absolutely essential. And I don't really care what format that is in. It's about bringing down those divisions. So I congratulate you on quite clearly already demonstrating that you're doing that, and the manner in which you do that. So, you know, I think well done, guys. And, you know, I feel really privileged to have been invited along to hear what you have to say, and to, you know, be a part of that. And I think, you know, everyone involved will greatly benefit. Yes, we do have a lot of problems to overcome, and we can overcome them collectively, because our strength is very much in numbers. And you know, the approach that we take in Ubuntu is that we will use existing tools. So we will register as, you know, organization that the current system will recognize, and we will use money, but we will use these things in order to actually beat those very systems. So we're going to be in it, and then like a Trojan horse, break out using it. So and that will be through no resistance, and the same sort of philosophy. So the fact that you guys are speaking about similar sort of things, you know, this is about higher consciousness and coming from the right place. I think one of the problems that we have is actually having groups of people that are actually in the right place. They hear something that they like, but when it comes to the ability, the capability to contribute, we're a very wounded race, because we've been receiving a battering for a long time. So I think part of this is being able to actually bring some love and compassion to one another, and allowing for those wounds. But I've said enough again, so I'll be
great. Beautiful.
No, it's good. I mean, we're all on the same level here, and this is why it makes talking so easy, even though we all are from different backgrounds. I mean, the thing is, I keep using this analogy of the house on fire. We know that the house is on fire, and what we're doing is we're making a line. That's what we're doing.
And Lee, what I think is so important about the work and the model that you guys have, and I've read Michael's book. I'm familiar with how it works, and what's important about that and what we're trying to do here is that it provides a feasible roadmap. And, you know, the biggest question, you know this, the biggest question we get is, well, it's too utopian, because they can't see how to get from here to there. Therefore, it's hogwash. It's bullshit. It'll never happen. So, yeah, I mean, my hat is off to you guys for providing the potential solution, and to what we're trying to do as well, is providing, hopefully, a realistic roadmap that's working now, not in the distant future.
Well, what we're trying to at one stage, we set all these wheels of co-creation. Let's put them under a cart, you know, and let's put the wheels of the World Summit on the front, and let's steer us all in the same direction. And then we can afterwards, you know, go our separate ways, you know. But we need to work together to make this happen. If it's not going to be a collective effort, then it's going to be an uphill battle. But I think that, and this is something that we need to talk about as well briefly, is the slice that is called transition. Now, we've put that slice in there because we call it an interim transition. This is a transition that will benefit everybody in the interim before everybody goes their own way. Obviously, we're going to have high-tech, low-tech, people who want to stay who they are, kind of thing. So there needs to be an interim transition that makes handover from governments a lot smoother. This is thinking from a strategic part. I can see you smile, Jim, but it will be a nice outcome that way. We will sell straight past them, I'm sure of it, but there's going to be too many of us if all the groups unite.
And we, Jim, I think we would hope to use some of the technologies from the indigenous communities. And, you know, if somebody went against the ways of the tribe, they basically just, you know, push that person out, ostracize them until they atoned for their wrongdoing to the tribe, and then they were invited back in. We actually can use the power of inclusion and exclusion, and we think if we get enough people on board with this, then it's going to flip the whole thing, and then pretty soon, you know, rather than, you know, that Buckminster Fuller quote, create a new system that makes the old one obsolete. That's what we'll be doing, and at some point, we're going to get enough people, and I'm talking even about some of the corporations too, whether it's, you know, Elon Musk, and you know, anyway, I'm drawing a blank there, but some of these different organizations that have huge aspirations for humanity, but maybe they haven't been presented yet with a feasible model yet to flip us. But once we flip one or two, then pretty soon it's going to be a domino effect. And we're also hoping to invite to the meeting in January in Mexico. We want to reach out to some journalists that have already demonstrated that they're already in the next paradigm, whether it's Greg Greenwald, who, you know, basically helped what's his name? I'm drawing a blank on the guy.
Snowden,
Eric Snowden, or George Monbiot from The Guardian in the UK. Or another one I just thought of too, it'd be perfect, is God, I'm drawing blanks with names here. What's the lady that Empire Files? She does some very hard-hitting journalism that goes against, you know, the typical military-industrial paradigm, should we say. But anyway, there's a number of different journalists that we would like to invite and to our events, our mini summits. And once we start doing that, we think this could really go viral.
and if it does go viral, then we don't have to wait 10 years to go into our transition. Then we're doing it already. And you know what, yeah.
We don't have 10 years.
We don't.
Yeah.
No.
We don't. I'm well aware of that. And that this is it. You know, if January, well, I'm going to stay positive. When January is going to be successful, it will go viral, especially if we got journalists there. Especially if we're going to record the whole thing as well, and then we'll put it online afterwards. Each individual group can have their copy on there and say, look, this is how it's, how we've been talking. This is what our plan is. What do you guys think? And I think that everybody will resonate with this idea to work together to just sail straight past the government and the corporations. You know, it's like we're hiding in plain sight. We're not even hiding. So it's right. It looks like Lee is going.
Yeah, I'm sorry, everyone, to leave without seeing it through to the end, but needs must. But thank you once again for inviting me. Thank you very much for everything that you're doing. And as I said in the text, if there's a chance I can actually have a link to the recording of this Zoom meeting so I can go back over anything that I missed, I'd really be very grateful. And thank you to everyone for being a part of this as well.
Absolutely, Lee. Thanks for joining us. Look forward to working together however we can.
Okay.
Yes, we'll stay in touch, Lee. Well, that kind of concludes everything. On a personal note, I'll be going over to Mexico as well for a little while. And then after that, I'm not quite sure yet where I'm going, but where I'm going, I'll probably set up a World Summer Cafe there myself as well and get that up and running. So, and in the meantime, I've been kind of thrown a lifeline with having a GBI, because otherwise I would have been on the streets, so to say. I can spend a full working week on the World Summit if I have to. So I've got no responsibilities now, so I've got the time. That's it.
Thanks, everybody.
So
Thank you all. We'll make this recording available on the Facebook group, and let us know if there's any suggestions or further questions.
So and this is it. This is us working together. Creating. So starting to create it. Brilliant.
Yeah.
So Jim, you're going to join us in Mexico as well, then? Brilliant.
Yep.
So
All right.
if you don't mind, that in the invitations we'll put in there who is already coming. That might be an incentive too.
Right.
So, and here's Jim typing away.
Okay. Cool, Jim. Thanks for being here and joining us. And I guess thanks everyone else. Unless there's any other questions, we'll call it a wrap. All right.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you, everybody.
Yeah.
Bye.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.
Bye.